Hello, you're welcome back to my channel. So today we'll be looking at how to sew a dartless skirt with an inverted pleat as the vent. Okay, instead of the slit, we're having an inverted pleat instead. So now I have my pattern here. I have several tutorials on how to draft a dartless pencil skirt on my channel, so I'll leave the links below. Okay, so you watch that and know what we are doing here. So for now, I'll just focus on how to cut the vent and how to cut and sew the skirt. Okay, so now I have my pattern and the fabric that I'll be using. So now I'll just fold this into two. First of all, I'll be cutting the front panel first. Now this is my front panel. I'll use this to cut the back. So I'll fold my fabric into two. So folding my fabric into two, I'll bring my pattern, my front panel pattern, and place on my fabric. I'll pin this down. And then cut this. Okay, so I'm using exactly the length I have on the pattern because I'm making a long skirt. Okay, the seam allowance inclusive. I have my front panel and I'll just remove the pleat and set this pattern aside and move over to cut the back panel. So cutting the back panel and folding my fabric into two again. So folding my fabric into two, I will determine how many inches I want for the vent, okay, for the inverted pleat, at the back. So the inverted pleat will come in the middle back, just the line that you sew your zip allowance, okay. And if you go through the video of the dartless pencil skirt, how we draft it, you will understand this better. So now I'll use a colored chalk so it will be visible. So I'll be leaving 4 inches. Okay, 4 inches as my allowance, and then connecting this line. So I'll bring in the front panel and place it on the middle back, this line that we have seen. I'll place it on the middle back and ensure that everything is equal. And then pin it. So now I will need to bring in my pattern now to be as a guide for me to know my hip line, my knee line too. So this is my hip line and I have my knee line here. It will help me in the drafting. So now I'll just extend these lines. Now, for hip line, I added 1.5 inches as my seam allowance. So I'll subtract the 1.5 inches from it and measure from here 11.75 my hip measurement for the back panel, and I'm adding 1 inch for seam allowance. So I will just connect this from the waistline. I'll connect it like so, and I'll meet my knee line. Now you can choose to make it just straight at this point, but I like to make it a bit pencil, a bit more fitted. So at my hem here, I'll measure 2 inches inwards. And then I'll bring my ruler and connect it to meet my knee line. So I'll connect this 2 inches to meet my knee line like so, and I'll not be cutting that part out. Okay, this will just guide me when I am sewing it. So then for the zipper allowance, I'll use 1 inch. So I'll measure out 1 inch here and connect it to meet from the waistline. I'll connect it to meet the hip line like this. That will be for the zipper, and I will use same 1 inch to the knee. And because this will not have any opening, I can take this as far as I want. So I can just make it 3 inches upward. Okay, so meaning the whole of that will have the inverted pleat. Now that's to ease you when you're walking. Okay, so I'll go up with 3 inches, and that's where my cutting will start. So now within this range, I can stitch, to make it firm, and sew it from there. Meaning when I'm sewing it from the hem, I will stop stitch around this. Within this 3 inches, I can stop stitch anywhere. That's where the slit will start. Then I'm making the back panel 1/4 higher than the front panel. So I'll use my ruler and connect it like this, and that's where I'll cut out. So cutting out the waistline, I'll come here and cut it out at where I marked the 3 inches, and then take 1 inch upward. And this will serve as my zipper allowance. So then, cutting it from the hem, I'll just take it straight from here. I'm cutting it straight and follow the side contour like this. So I have the front and the back panel now, and then I'm just taking it. I'll cut the lining. Okay, the lining can stop at the knee line, or if you want it a bit farther, there's no problem, because there will be no split here, so there'll be no issue at all. So I'll take it to the machine. I'll sew it from here. Note this line we marked. I'm sewing it, and I'll stop stitch it about 1 inch above the hip line, and then use loose stitch to sew it here. I'll be adding interface, for the zipper to give it some stability around this region. So I will insert the zipper and then join the sides. Okay, so to sew this, I have had to pin at the waistline, and I'll pin it here too. I'll pin here too. Then you look at the chalk where it runs. Ensure that everything is equal this way, and then you place it under your presser foot like this. Now we'll be sewing loose stitch from the hem to where we want the inverted pleat to stop. So I'll take it to the loose stitch, and I'm sewing it all the way up. Now when I get here, I'm top stitching. I'll change it to a normal stitch now, and then stitch it all the way to where I want the zipper to stop. When I get here, I'm stop stitching now, and then I will use loose stitch again to the waistline. Note the line we are following. Okay. So there. So after sewing it, I'll take it to the ironing board and iron this open. And when I get to where the inverted pleat is, I'll remove the pin and notch the middle. It's that middle, I'll take it to the seams, to the seam, okay? Take it to the middle of the seam like this, and make sure you arrange it well all the way to the hem, and that's how you iron it. And then I'll add an interface where I want to install the zipper. After ironing it, this is what it should look like. Don't mind the color of the chalk. I will have to wash this out. I had to use that color so we can see it properly. Then turning to this side, this is what it looks like. Okay, so I had to pin it down here and up there so it will help me in the ironing. Now when you're ironing, because we can't open it up and iron inside, we need to stretch it. You need to straighten it enough for it to be flat like this. Okay, so now when we are done with this, I need to sew this down, and before I do that, I need to note where I stop stitch, and where I stop stitch is where the needle, the pin is. Okay, so I can bring down the pin this way, and I will measure it from here, from the top, because it has to run through where you stop stitch. So I'll measure 1 inch on the two sides of the seam. Okay, then draw a straight line here. Then I can use 1 inch upward to form the triangle, or 1/1/4. So 1/1/4, this is how I'm sewing it to meet the 1 inch I marked down there, and we are forming a triangle. We are forming a triangle now. So this is how I will sew it, like this triangle. You need to get the corners just to keep this in place. So sewing it, this is where I'll start from the seam. I'll stop stitch and then take it to the first corner, pin my needle down and turn it this way. I'm sewing the straight line now. I'll take it to the next point, pin my needle down and turn this way to sew it back to my start point. So that way I've sewn it down now. Okay, and then we'll proceed to install the zipper. After installing the zipper, I'll bring in the front panel, and then we take our measurements. Okay, now you measure your skirt. This is the waistline, so I'm measuring it. I have 22 inches for the front panel, and I'll bring it here and measure the waistline of the back panel. So I have 45, and I'm using waist 35 inches. Then so we have difference of 10 inches. Okay, so therefore means on one side we'll have 2.5 inches, and the other side we have 2.5 inches as the seam allowance for the waist. And I'll do the same thing to the hip, and whatever I have for the hip, you know, the leftover of the hip measurement, I'll divide it by 4 and then have what I'll use for the seam allowance. So I've joined the sides. This is what it looks like. So for the inverted pleat is still intact. I'm not losing it out yet. So at this point I'll just lose the loose stitch that we did. So losing it out, this is what I have, and I'll go ahead and spread it. I'll be using 2 inches to do the hemming. And for the waistline, I want to make it a bandless skirt. So I've sewn the lining just the way I sew the skirt. So I'll just lose the zipper part. After losing it, I'll bring it this is what I have. This is the lining. So I'll bring the right side to face the right side this way. Okay, to face the right side this way, and make sure that it goes round the waist and all. So I'll make sure the stitch meets the waist, and then I'll pin it. And I'll take it round the waistline like this to this other side, ensuring that the seam meets, and I'll take it this way to meet this other zipper, and then pin it. So now I'll take it to the machine and sew this with I'll sew the lining, the zipper, and the main fabric together. Okay, and after that I'll sew it on the two sides, and after that I'll use 1/2 inch to sew the lining and the main fabric together all around the waistline, and turn it and stop stitch. That will be it for the waistline. And this is our inverted pleat vent. Hope you try this out. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video.